Today I want to teach you the basics of Git. So if you clicked on this video, you probably already know what Git is, but for those who don't, it's a version control system. This means that Git allows you to track the changes that you've made to your software and add versions for it and make it open source and other stuff like that. So let's just get straight into it. I'm going to bring up a terminal here and I have an example project, right? So I've just created this project and I have an example Ruby file that just prints hello world. So that's just my project and I want to track this project with Git. So what I'm going to do is, I assume that you have Git installed, which if you don't, you can just install it. It's available in pretty much every package manager out there. You can also install it via zip file or the tar archive, right? The tarball, you can do that as well. I'll leave a link in the description to this Git installation guide on the website. So I have this project and I'm going to track it with Git. And the first thing that you do in pretty much any project to initialize Git is say git and then init. So that will initialize a new Git repository. A Git repository is basically like a Git project, right? A project that is tracked by Git, and git init will initialize a new one for us. So it's going to say initialized empty Git repository in this directory right here. So now it will create this directory. So you want to pass the $A flag to your ls, and you'll see here .git. And if you go into that directory, what you'll see is a whole bunch of files, and we're going to ignore these files for now. This is not important for this part of the video. We'll talk about this later on. But now we have Git initialized. But if we actually run git status, that basically just shows you like a status of what's actually happening right now, what's going on. And you can see that we're on branch main. So if you do git init, it might say that your branch is master by default. You can actually edit a lot of that using git config. We'll talk about that later on in the video as well. And we have no commits. So commits are like messages, right? So it's like you make one change to your project and then you give it a message. So what that change was about. That's basically what commits are. And we have some untracked files. So git just initialized a repo here. So repo is short for repository, but it actually haven't tracked any files. So I'm going to add this example.ruby file here. I'm going to say git add example.rb. That is going to add that file. And now we have to do a commit. So I'll just type in git and then commit. And that would actually open up your editor with the commit message editor. Or you can actually just say -m to pass in the commit message directly. So you can say something like add example.rb file. Although for the first commit of your repository, because this is my first commit right in this repository, I'm actually going to say initial commit because that's what people usually do. And there we go. So now we've got our initial commit, and now we have a tracked file, right? So if you say git log, that is going to show you all of the commits, and this is our latest commit right here. It has this unique commit hash, and this is the main commit, so it's the head, and you can see what branch it is in. You can see the author and the author's email, and you can also see the date and of course the message of the commit. So now let's make some changes to our project. I'm going to add a variable here called fruit equals apple, and I'm going to print that fruit, or actually we'll just print fruit. And so now we've got some changes to our file, and if we do git status, it's going to show you that this file has been modified. And if you want to know what has been modified about this file, you can actually say git diff. So if you say git diff on some file, it'll show you the difference between whatever git is tracking and whatever the actual file is. So we have these extra lines right here. And let's say I wanted to redo that. So I'll first just add it. So I'll say git add example.rb, and I will say git commit -m add fruit variable. Alright, so now if I do git log, you can see the 2 commits right here, and now this is the new head. So now I'm going to make some extra changes. I'm going to remove the fruit, right? So now if I do git status, you can see it's modified. Now we're going to restore the file. So I'm basically going to change it from whatever is local here to whatever is git tracked. So I'm basically going to sync it with the git repository. So I'm going to say git restore example.rb, and remember I haven't made the commit for removing the fruit variable, so git still thinks that the fruit variable is there. I'm going to restore this file. Now if I open it, that fruit variable is back. So that's the basics of adding files, restoring them, and committing, and of course creating a git repository. And you're pretty much ready to use git now. And now you'll probably want your repository on the internet. So that is how stuff like GitHub works, right? You have your repository and then you add it to a remote, is what Git calls it, where other people can see your code as well. So I'm going to move this to my second workspace, and I'm going to bring up Firefox. And a lot of people, they'll use this thing called GitHub, which GitHub, it's kind of ironic because GitHub is promoting open source, right? Yeah, open source is the best. You should definitely make open source software, and like it's this open source platform, right? Well, guess what? Not only is GitHub owned by Microsoft, GitHub is proprietary. It is not open source. So it literally says here, open source blah blah blah. It's like the worst piece of software to ever exist. It has all this AI stuff built in it because it's owned by Microsoft, right? Big tech companies, they gotta do what they gotta do, and it is proprietary. It's a proprietary system for Git open source projects. It's a proprietary system for open source projects. Very funny. So I suggest not using GitHub, and what I actually recommend is this thing called Codeberg, which I've used till just today because I trying out sourcehut and seeing how that goes. So Codeberg is very similar to GitHub, and I guess the system it's the same as GitHub really, but it's not proprietary. It's open source. And sourcehut, if I go there to sourcehut.org, or actually it's sr.ht. My internet is bad today, but yeah, you can see that I just made this new sourcehut account. This is also pretty minimal. It's also open source, and so once you create an account in any of these, you can actually upload to your remote. So I recommend sourcehut and Codeberg. So for example, I'm going to create a new sourcehut project, right? You can check out a GitHub tutorial if you really want to use GitHub, though I don't recommend it. Same for Codeberg, you can use a Codeberg tutorial, and I do recommend Codeberg. So I'm gonna say create new project, and I'm gonna call this, well, we'll just call it my cool project, why not, right? And I'll say this is an example project. Again, this is for people who want to use sourcehut as their remote, right? If you want to use GitHub, just ignore all of this. For my YouTube video, now I can add tags, so I'm just gonna add like, I don't know, example cool create project. And now I've got a public repository. I will add source code. Git is what we want because obviously this is a Git video. Create new Git repository. Very nice. And now I'm gonna go here, and Codeberg has this link, right? read/write. I'm gonna go ahead and, sorry, not Codeberg, sourcehut, muscle memory. I'm gonna say git, and then I'm gonna add remote. So remote is for doing stuff with remotes, and we're gonna say add. So we're gonna add a new remote, and we're going to call this origin, and then we're just gonna paste in the link. So that is going to add that remote, And now in order to push to this remote, right, push to this new remote, we will say git push dash dash set dash upstream origin main. Or if git automatically chose master as your branch, you're going to want to use master here. And for you, it's probably going to ask for your username and password. But if you do use SSH, which I recommend you do, so you literally just type in like SSH keygen, and it will allow you to create an SSH key. And once you create that SSH key, you can go to meta.source.hut or sr.ht, go to keys here, and then you can just change your SSH key. So click on add key and paste in your public key here, not your private key. You'll have like .ssh id underscore ed25519.pub, right? So the one that ends with .pub, get that, copy this, paste it in here. Now you should have SSH working, and you can just paste in your SSH password. So sorry, not paste in, just write it. Never write it down on your computer in like a text file or anything, okay? That is not safe. But once you do that, you can go back to git, and now we have the my cool project. And if you go here, we've got our commits, very beautiful. So ignore this error right here. We've got our initial commit, and we've got our add fruit variable commit. If we go to the tree, we've got the list of files, so you can navigate this and see what's going on. But now let's read this error. It says that we can't find a license. So that is really important. If you want to create an open source project, right, you want to open source your project, you'd actually want to use an open source license. Right now we've got no license. License says, hey, this project is open source. And I'm going to use the GPL because the way the GPL works is that it's going to say, hey, this project is open source. It has no warranty. If it did something to you and it was harmful to your computer or anything, the creator is not responsible for that. And if you want to fork this project, you must ensure that it is using the same license. That's like the summary of what GPL is. It stands for the GNU General Public License. So I'll just search that up. GNU General Public License version 3 plus. That is what we want. Actually, it's just version 3, not version 3 plus. It's also referred to as GPL v3 or just GPL. And if you go to the website here, again, bad internet, I don't know why. It's made by Richard Stallman as well, so that's cool, right? It is taking a while to load up. Alright, after like 1,000 years, it has finally loaded up, and I'm gonna open up the plain text version. So if you go here to the GPL in other formats, click on plain text, and it should give you this raw plain text file, which that is also apparently taken a lot of time to load up. There we go, and I'm just gonna copy that. So Control A, Control C should copy all of it. And the license you usually put in this file called license, all in capitals. And I'm going to paste that in. So now I've got my license. Again, do git status. So we've got our license here. Add that, and we're going to commit. So I'm going to call it, I'll call it add license. Again, you can use the -m flag if you really wanted to, and then I'll just say git push, and it should push to that new remote that we just added, right? Again, add your SSH key or your username and password if you use that. Alright, so now we've got a license, and if we were to reload this, you can see that that error is gone and we have this new commit right here. So now what I'm going to do is add a readme, and you'll see this in a lot of open source projects. It's basically a file that explains like the summary of what this project is about, how to like install it and stuff like that. And so you'll create this file called readme. Now the readme can have multiple formats. So for example, you can use markdown, that's .markdown or .md. You can use a restructure test, that's RST, that is not Rust, but I like using just plain text. I don't know, it's pretty minimal. I'll call this my cool project. And I'm actually just going to copy my description right here. So now I've got my description, and I'll say here is how to run my cool project, and then I'll just say ruby example.rb, and that will be it for my readme. And I'm going to add that. I'm going to add a commit, and it's going to be called add readme file, and I'm going to push that again. So it's going to ask me for my SSH passphrase. Now if I reload, you can see that now we have a readme down here. So that is the basics of how you can use Git to track the changes you've made to your projects, and also how you can use sourcehut to put it on the internet. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Anyways, that's gonna be it, so goodbye.